So for all things bowl projections, college football playoff related, I'm joined by CBS Sports bowl expert Jerry Palm, who, when the playoff rankings began, you expected it to look like this, with Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, and Oklahoma getting in. Does anything that happened with Ohio State, that Wisconsin game having to come from behind, and LSU dominating Georgia, does anything change for you, 1-2?
No, I still have Ohio State number one. And I believe when the committee looks at the entirety of the season that these two teams played, Ohio State has to be number one. They have been dominant throughout this entire season. Today was just the second game with a margin of victory of fewer than 24 points. Penn State was the other. They had one bad half this entire season, and it happened to be tonight, the first half against Wisconsin. Nobody has dominated college football the way Ohio State has over the course of the 3 months of this season, and they should be the number one seed.
Well, the number one seed has never won the national championship in the college football playoff era, so maybe LSU says, sure, go ahead, have number one, but number three is Clemson, so they might not be saying that?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play Clemson first. They might be number three, but that's an awfully good team and the defending champion.
All right, so let's move down, since there's not a ton of intrigue then in 1, 2, 3, 4 with Clemson, Oklahoma, 3 and 4. When you look down at the Cotton Bowl, with Memphis likely going to the Cotton Bowl, then who are they playing?
I have Memphis playing Penn State, and when the other bowls get filled out, the Cotton Bowl ends up being last because they will get the highest ranked team that is not already in one of the other New Year's Six games, and I'm projecting that to be Penn State to take on the Group of Five conference champion with the best ranking, and that'll be Memphis for sure.
All right, so Memphis and Penn State. How about the Rose Bowl?
Rose Bowl, Wisconsin should not fall behind Penn State after that performance today. I think they'll hold their ranking, and they'll represent the Big Ten and take on Pac-12 champion Oregon.
I want to stay with Oregon then for a moment and the scheduling. It's something we've talked about before. If Oregon doesn't have Auburn to start the season and they get a cupcake early in the year, are they sitting in a spot where they'd be playing for the college football playoff and trying to get into that 4th spot and have that argument?
No, because their schedule would not be as good as Oklahoma's. They would not have the quality of wins that Oklahoma has. Oklahoma has 2 wins over Baylor and another win over a team in the rankings. Oregon wouldn't be able to match that. Playing Auburn would have given them an opportunity to at least compare schedules more favorably. But 12-1 Oregon without that Auburn game and some cupcake is not going to compete.
Yeah, because that's always going to be the question, is scheduling and how should you schedule. But in this case, it comes down to just how good or really not good the Pac-12 was this year. Is Oregon first team out? Are they 5?
No, I think Georgia will be 5. I think Georgia, Oregon will be 6, and then Baylor 7, ahead of Wisconsin still at 8.
All right, so speaking of Georgia then, where are they headed?
Georgia will go to the Sugar Bowl, represent the SEC. They're the runner-up with the champion in the playoff. Georgia, the next highest-ranked team, will be in the Sugar Bowl. They'll face Baylor, the runner-up in the Big 12, since their champion is also in the playoff.
All right, and how about the Orange Bowl?
Yeah, so the Orange Bowl gets an ACC team. The second-best team will be Virginia. If Virginia ends up not being in the rankings, then the Orange Bowl will get to actually choose an ACC team, but it would probably still be Virginia. And they'll face the highest-rated team from either the SEC or the Big Ten that's left, and in this case, that would be Florida.
All right, Jay, give me some non-New Year's Six bowls that I should be looking forward to come bowl season.
Well, the one that I think is going to be most people would look forward to would be what I project for the Citrus Bowl, which would be Alabama, number 13, I expect, in the rankings, versus Michigan. That's 2 big brand names that hardly ever get to play each other. So I think that would attract a lot of attention. I've got a Camping World Bowl with Notre Dame playing Texas, which is another game with 2 marquee names, although Notre Dame would probably be a reasonably heavy favorite in that game because of the way Texas stumbled down the stretch of the season. And then I've got a couple of border wars. I've got an Indiana-Kentucky Gator Bowl and a Louisville-Tennessee Music City Bowl that would at least have local interest.
Yeah, I like that. It could fill a stadium. One question on Alabama. You expect a lot of the kids to play, the future NFL players?
Well, we're already seeing some step aside,
Right.
not just at Alabama, but at other schools too. And that's really has become a trend and is probably going to continue to become a trend. Players are not willing to risk their NFL careers in bowl games outside of the playoff.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense to a certain extent, to a large extent, I would say. He's Jerry Palm, our CBS Sports Bowl expert. All you need to know, college football playoff and bowl season. Jerry, thank you very much. Joined now by Brian McFadden, the two-time Super Bowl champ. So let's talk about the playoff then. If everything goes by what Jerry says, that it's Ohio State 1, they'd play Oklahoma, then LSU would play Clemson. What do you like?
Well, I think LSU should be 1, in my opinion.
Right, I know that's what you think, but I'm going by what Jerry says.
If it's that way, I like Oklahoma to lose to Ohio State.
Okay.
I like Clemson to beat LSU.
Okay, so then you got Ohio State and Clemson.
Yep. National championship game taking Clemson.
Clemson wins it in New Orleans.
Yep.
In a close game?
8 or 9 points.
Oh, so not really.
Yeah.
So what is it about Clemson that gives them that much of an edge over Ohio State?
I think they're the most complete team in college football when it comes to the playoff teams. And yes, in college football, they can run the football well. They got a quarterback who you trust that could win a ball game with his arm. They got outstanding pass catchers. And they're not saying that the other teams in the playoffs, I'm not saying they don't have that. Because if you get to this level to be able to make the playoffs, you have good players up and down your roster. But what Clemson has, they're special, they have experience, and they know what it takes because they've been to the promised land before and beat a really good Alabama team with ease a year ago. And guess what? The majority of those players, especially on the offensive side, they're still there on campus. And I think that's a huge plus to have when you're talking about playing in a Game 7 like atmosphere. So pairing all of those things up, and also the final key factor for me, Noah, coaching. If you had to rank all the coaches that will be in the playoffs, I'm willing to bet the consensus would say Dabo Swinney is number 1.
Certainly the experience is there.
And
that's for sure.
He has the numbers to back that as well. And he's, once again, undefeated.
Yeah. And so speaking of Clemson, so Caesars comes out with their line at 4.5. Clemson, a 4.5-point favorite over LSU.
Really? I guess Caesars they've been listening to me because I've been raving about Clemson for quite some time. So just hearing that, with Clemson being ranked lower than LSU on a neutral field, if they're the favorites, Vegas, they feel like Clemson is probably one of the best teams in college football.
B-Mac?
Yep.
Thanks, buddy.
It's always fun.
More highlights coming up next here on CBS Sports HQ. Hang with us.